We're making a gorgeous, delicious, really easy lemon ricotta crostata that you will absolutely love. This is the Italian version of a lemon tart, and it is sensational. Let me run you through what you'll need to make the crust, which is like my go-to pie crust pretty much, and it works well every single time. Today I'm making it in a food processor. You can also just make this in a standing mixer with a paddle attachment or by hand. I'm using the processor, nice and easy. In there, I'm going to add my flour along with a pinch of salt. I'm also going to add some unsalted butter that's really nice and cold still. And I'm going to go ahead and pulse this until the butter is distributed amongst, I also want to add the sugar, 2 tablespoons of sugar, until the butter is distributed really well throughout those dry ingredients, and the size kind of resembles the size of small peas. But keep an eye on it. You don't want to take it too far. So just pulse it. Not sure you can see that, but you see the butter is nice and small, and it'll continue to break down a little bit as we add in the wet ingredients. And for that, you're just going to need 1 whole egg, and you're going to need some really cold ice water, between 2 and 3 tablespoons. Usually it's sort of like 2.5 tablespoons. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit it with about 2.5. And I'm going to pulse that until it comes together. But it's not going to come together perfectly because otherwise you'll be over mixing it. So just, I'll show you. You see how that still looks crumbly, but when you grab it and you pinch it together and it holds, that's how you know you're in the right spot. And you can actually still see all the cold pieces of butter, which are going to be the reason why your pie crust is really nice and flaky and gorgeous. Lightly dust your work surface because we're going to pull this together by hand. I don't want to add too much flour because I don't want to have to add more moisture. And then all you do is you just gather it with your hands. You see all those little tiny, tiny pieces? Those are all pieces of butter. And they are going to be so delicious and flaky and gorgeous in your end result. And try to work quickly because you don't want the warmth of your counter, and most importantly, the warmth of your hands, to melt that butter. But look at that. Came together into a nice little disc. That looks gorgeous. I can see the butter all throughout. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this, or I should say wrap this in some plastic wrap, and I'm going to pop it into the fridge for about 45 minutes. And in the meantime, we are going to make our custard, which is easy, simple, my favorite custard that I make all the time. And this time it's going to be for this lemon tart. Now we're going to make the custard, crema pasticcera, okay? And it's going to start off with some milk in a saucepan. We're going to be using lemon a few different ways. We're going to need the zest twice. The first time, we're going to take some of the zest, about, I would say, the zest of a half of a lemon. I want just the peel. You see how it's just the peel, barely any white? That's what I want. So I'm just going to take a few strips of that. I would say about half, lemon, half lemon's worth. You know what I mean? The other lemon zest we'll use in here, which I'll show you. And now I'm going to just gently bring this to temperature and bring that to a simmer. I don't want to boil it. I want it to come to a simmer. Now, what I have in this large bowl are some egg yolks. To the egg yolks, I'm going to go ahead and add in my granulated sugar. And then I'm going to take the remaining zest of the lemon, and then this time I'm going to grate it. And I'm going to grate it right in here with the lemon and with the egg yolks. And while that comes to a simmer, I'm just going to go ahead and whisk these together just until they become a little more light and pale in color. And then your thickener is a mixture of all-purpose flour, cornstarch, and a pinch of salt. And everything together is going to be phenomenal. You'll also need a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of vanilla. I'm just going to babysit this. I want this to come to temperature gently. If you have a vanilla pod or a vanilla bean, it would be great to add it to your milk as it warms up so that it really infuses. I don't have those. I'm just going to use my homemade vanilla extract. So I'll use that towards the end. Or you can also use a little bit of vanillina or vanilla powder if you are in Italy. I'm going to add in my thickener, and it's going to get really thick, okay? Not super thick, but but this is what you are looking for. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this aside for now until that mixture of milk and the lemon is up to temperature. It's almost there, maybe another minute or so, but I don't want to rush it because I don't want that to come to a boil. I can see some small bubbles forming around the edges. I'm just gonna take some of this hot milk and I'm gonna stream it and whisk it into the egg yolk mixtures. And the reason why we do that is so that when we do add this mixture to the pot, they don't shock, the egg yolks don't get shocked and then curdle, because we don't want, you know, scrambled egg yolks, because that, I don't know about you, but that does not sound pleasant. That doesn't sound pleasant to me. Maybe it sounds pleasant to you, but it does not sound pleasant to me. And now that this is pretty much combined, I'm gonna go ahead and add all of this to my pan. Now, this is going to thicken up almost immediately, but don't let that fool you into thinking that your custard is ready, because watch what's gonna happen in just the next, I don't know, 30 seconds or so. Watch how thick this is gonna get. But don't let this fool you into thinking that it is ready, because it is absolutely not ready. Once this begins to thicken, you're gonna go ahead and cook this for 5 minutes, and you're gonna have to whisk, oopsies, you see how it's thickening up so quickly? Look at that. And you're gonna have to continuously whisk so that it doesn't burn for, I would say, about 5 minutes. I put a timer on for 5 minutes and it's perfect every time. And you're just gonna whisk it the whole time until it's ready. See? Now you're gonna think right now this is ready. Oh, it's thick, it's ready. It is not ready. Your flour is not cooked yet, your egg yolks aren't cooked yet, and you're just gonna have to have patience, whisking the entire time. You can also switch to a heat-proof spatula or wooden spoon. I'm just gonna put my timer on, gentle heat for 5 minutes. 5 minutes are up, custard is ready. We're gonna add a couple more things to that. We're gonna add a little splash of vanilla. I always like to add it towards the end so that the flavor doesn't cook out. A splash of vanilla and about a tablespoon or so of fresh lemon juice. This kind of just zings it up a little bit and brings a little acidity to the party. Give that a little mix. It already smells so good. You can take the lemon peels, you know, you can take them out now, or you can take them out, you know, after it's cold. It's totally up to you. I kind of tend to do a mix of both, if I'm honest with you. Like if I can see them as I'm whisking in or mixing in the vanilla and whatnot, then I'll take them out. If not, I do it later. As long as you take them out before you bake it, because you don't want to cut into a big piece of lemon peel, because it can be bitter. And this already smells fantastic, looks fantastic. You can pass this through a fine sieve if you want, if you feel like you may have curdled your eggs. I feel pretty good. I feel pretty safe that I haven't. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add this straight in to a large bowl. And very quickly, you're gonna cover this with plastic wrap, making sure that the plastic wrap is touching the custard itself so that it doesn't form any weird film on top of the custard as it cools. And I'm gonna let this cool on the counter for a little bit before popping it into the fridge to cool, not completely, but it needs to be pretty cool. And by the time this is done, the pie crust will be ready, and then we'll add a couple more things to this, and then we assemble and we bake, and it's sensational. Custard has cooled, and now what I have here is a little package with something special. I've got some ricotta. Now, because this is not homemade ricotta, you know how when you buy the tub of it, it tends to be a little looser. So I want to drain out excess moisture so that my pie sets properly. And what I like to do if I'm using store-bought ricotta is put some of it through a strainer, like in a strainer, over a cheesecloth, or you can use coffee filters. That works really well. Cover it, and you can just leave it. I like to leave it overnight, because then I make my pie the next morning. I let it cool all afternoon, and it's ready to be served at dinner time. And it gives you the right consistency. So once you have your ricotta ready, you are ready to assemble your custard, if you will. Let me just go grab one more ingredient that I forgot. To my nicely thickened and drained ricotta, I'm gonna add just a couple tablespoons of sugar, and I'm gonna mix that all together to combine, and you're essentially making crema di ricotta. And this right here could be the filling. If you add in different kinds of dried fruits and chocolate chips, you can fill cannoli with it, you name it. But crema di ricotta is a base for a lot of desserts in Italy. Fiocchi di neve, it's another one that we had when we were in Naples. It's so good, and it's filled with ricotta cream. Now you're just gonna unite the two. You can see the custard has set really nicely. And if you want your custard to be more yellow, like say you want it to be super, super vibrant in color, you can always add a few drops of food coloring, but you know, I don't tend to really care about that. But it also just depends on what eggs you use. If I use store-bought eggs, 9 times out of 10, my custard is not as yellow. But if I use my eggs from my backyard chickens, it tends to be a little richer in color. Time to roll out the pie crust. Now I did leave mine in the fridge for a little over an hour just because I wanted my custard to cool further. So you just want to make sure you take it out of the fridge about 5 minutes before you're ready to roll it. And look at all of that butter dispersed throughout. That's just going to give you the most fantastic, the most flaky and deliciousness. Just you wait. I also have my oven preheating to 350 degrees, and I'm just going to roll this out to about like a 12-inch circle. My pie plate that I'm using, or my pie pan I should say, my round cake pan, that's the one, is 9 inches, but I want this to be a little bit longer. Get it in your pan. This is my 9-inch metal cake pan. You can also do this in something like a pie plate. Make sure it's 9 inches. I just tend to think that it cooks better in metal, but that's up to you. And just take your time and just fit it into that pan, because the more you stretch it, the more it's just gonna shrink back in itself as it bakes. So just guide it so that it's sitting in there nicely. Pierce the bottom like so nothing puffs up. I like to do a little bit on the sides as well. Now you're gonna take your filling, which is delicious, might I add. Delicious. Get that in here. Oh, it smells so good. Beautiful. And it'll fit perfectly in this. Leave nothing behind, or maybe do. That way, you got yourself a little cook's treat. And then I like to make it nice and even. And now this is what I do. I'm gonna take a sharp little knife. I'm gonna cut off all the excess, and this is what I'm gonna use for the topping. I find that it just makes my job easier, but you can also just roll out 3/4 in one little disc for your base, and then the rest for your topping. But I do this, look, I let it work with me. See how these are nice big pieces? I go like that and like that. Usually that's about all you need. And then look, a little bit of flour, not much, not a lot. Roll this out, because I do want those to be a little bit thinner on the top. I try to make them all nice and even. And then look, I just cut strips. They don't have to be perfect. We don't do anything perfect around here because I don't have the time, nor do I have the patience. And I'll repeat the process all over, but then I just take that and you go like so. Cut off any excess like that. And then what I like to do is, I don't know how fancy this is, but I like to take the top and I just like to fold it down on itself like that. And then I come in here with the fork and I kind of just crimp it like that all around. Look at how gorgeous. That is gonna go into my preheated oven. I have it preheated to 375. I think I said 350 earlier. 375, and it's gonna go in there for about 30 minutes. I want everything to be really golden, and when you bring it out, it'll be really puffy, but then as it cools, it settles, and then I let it cool to room temperature before popping it into the fridge to cool completely. So for me personally, I like to make this late morning, and then I have time to serve it after dinner or late afternoon, and it's perfection. So I'm gonna pop it in there, but because I love you so much, and because we love this pie so much, I have one already ready. So let me go grab that while I pop this into the oven. This beauty is nice and set. I should have taken it out at 30 minutes, not 35, but that's okay. Teeny tiny bit overcooked. But it's, wait till you see this. And most importantly, wait till you taste it. Because when you taste it, you're gonna be like, what in the velvety goodness is that? And then I'm gonna say una bellissima crostata di limone. Look at that texture. Can you see the custard? It is perfection. My mouth is watering. Look at this. Look at the texture. It's kind of in between a custard and like a cheesecake. Do you know what I mean? I know you know what I mean. I know you get it. Look at that. You have to make this now, if not sooner. It is so good. And believe it or not, you're not gonna believe me, it's not overly sweet. It's not overly sweet. That little teeny tiny tang of the lemon juice makes it really bright. The lemon zest gives you all of that essential oil from the lemon. The pastry is light and it's beautifully crumbly. It's perfection, absolute perfection. LauraInTheKitchen.com for the written recipe. Hope you enjoyed spending time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Please make it.